First of all, are you surprised that actually the markets are remaining quite calm, or does it just prove the point that the firewalls put in place by the ECB are strong and they stand firm?
I don't think it's so much the firewalls put in by the ECB, to be honest. I think it's the markets taking a relatively sensible view. Of course, there's a lot of uncertainty. Markets always react to uncertainty. That goes without saying. But I think markets are also trying to look more deeply into this, as saying that, well, Greece, after all, is a relatively small, well, not a relatively small, a very small part of the Eurozone, only about 2%. Now, there, of course, are risks of contagion, but against the backdrop of a Eurozone which is gradually recovering, the risks of economic and financial contagion are actually more limited. The bigger risk, of course, is the risk perhaps of political contagion, and that's not so obvious. Perhaps the risk there is that the Commission gives in to Greece, and that prompts others to start a grab as well. That clearly is what the Commission is saying it's not going to do.
I saw a note this morning written by one of your peers, Kit Jukes, out there calling the euro capricious in terms of holding up in the face of adversity in all of this state of flux. As Francine says, we read so much, it moves so much. This currency is pretty darn resilient.
You've just seen one note, because I've seen about 2,000, and I'm not sure they had an awful lot to
I didn't like
value. But anyway, one of the surprises yesterday maybe was how the euro performed, and I think that there are a number of explanations for that. Firstly, I think there's technical unwinding of some positions, which has lent support to the euro. Also, I think maybe quite a lot of investors are saying, well, this is an opportunity to invest in the mainstream eurozone. It's come off quite sharply. We want to raise our weightings towards an economy which is beginning now to show more signs of recovery. We'll use this as an opportunity. And of course, in the longer term, if you take the view that Greece is going to leave the Eurozone, OK, there'll be some disruption in the short term, but actually the Eurozone is probably stronger without Greece than it would be with Greece.
Do you think it will leave? And actually, I understand that, you know, the rest of Europe may be strong without Greece, but the fundamental, or, you know, the foundations of the euro is irreversible. That's what I was taught in textbooks, right? It's now reversible. This means that we have a whole new paradigm to deal with.
Well, pretty much everything is reversible, apart from aging. We haven't found how to reverse that yet. But, you know, you can't make political and economic statements like that and say they're irreversible, because circumstances change, and in different circumstances everything is reversible. We don't know the end game of this yet. I've always felt it was more likely that Greece would leave the euro, would be forced out of the euro, than perhaps other people thought. I still think it's more likely, but there is no end game written in the stars somewhere. You know, the people in the Commission don't know what the end game is. They're still feeling their way through. Of course, as we go through, what the Eurozone wants to say to Greece is that this is a vote on whether or not you stay in the euro. The Greek leadership is trying to say to its people, this is a referendum on whether or not we accept austerity. And they're two different things, and it'll be that in the end which governs the outcome.
Richard, the conversation that we had earlier in the show was that to try and put some context around what is the Greek event, and it's very clear from Alberto Gallo, this is not a Lehman's moment, this is not that at the moment. Contained, do you think it's a containable situation for European growth if Greece goes?
Well, I think it's very containable for European growth. There may be a small psychological wobble, but in fact I don't think there'll be a big influence on what happens to the Eurozone. The Eurozone is probably going to grow faster this year than people expected at the beginning of the year. That is very important. There is still some exposure to Greek assets in the private sector amongst investors, but by and large people will have written down their exposures, and they should have done. So I think the risks of financial contagion a la Lehman's are quite small.
All right, Richard, thank you so much for all the insight. Richard Jeffrey there from Cazenove Capital Management.